Kunja Bihari Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Vijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Jaya Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana 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 Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunati Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Vrindavan Chandra Radha Vrindavan Chandra Radhe Jaya Radha Chandra Radha Vrindavan Chandra Radhe Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Jaya Nata Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gauranita 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Today we are going to be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, Chapter 6, verses 27 to 30, the last few verses of this chapter. Prahlad instructs his demoniac schoolmates, 27 to 30. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jnanam tadetadamalam duravapamaha. Narayano narasakha khila naradaya. Ekantinam bhagavatasthadakinchananam. Padaravindaraja plutadehinam syat. Sorry, we didn't recite all the prayers. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudire nashtaprayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. We'll continue. Verse 7, Canto 7, Chapter 6, verse 27. Jnanam tadetadamalam duravapamaha. Narayano narasakha kila naradaya. Ekantinam bhagavatasthadakinchananam. Padaravindaraja plutadehinam syat. Jnanam tadetadamalam duravapamaha. Narayano narasakha kila naradaya. Ekantinam bhagavatasthadakinchananam. पादारविन्दरजसा प्लुतदेहिनां स्यात्. Please chant. Jnanam tadetadamalam duravapamaha. Narayano narasakha kila naradaya. Ekantinam bhagavatastadakinchananam. Padaravandharajasa plutadehinam syat. Jnanam tadetadurapamaha. Narayano narasakha kila naradaya. Ekantinam bhagavatastadakinchananam. Padaravindharajasa plutadehinam syat. Jnanam tadetadamalam duravapamaha. Narayano narasakha kila naradaya. Ekantinam bhagavatastadakinchananam. Padaravindharajasa plutadehinam syat. Mothers, please chant. Jnanam tadetadamalam duravapamaha. Narayano narasakha kila naradaya. Ekantinam bhagavatastadakinchananam. Padaravindharajasa plutadehinam syat. Jnanam tadetadamalam duravapamaha. Narayano narasakha kila naradaya. Ekantinam bhagavatastadakinchananam. Padaravindharajasa plutadehinam syat. Jnanam, knowledge. Tat, that. Etat, this. Amalam, without material contamination. Duravapam, very difficult to understand without the mercy of a devotee. Aha, explained. Narayanaha, Lord Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Narasakhaha, the friend of all living entities, especially human beings. Kila, certainly. Naradaya, unto the great sage Narada. Ekantinam, of those who have surrendered exclusively to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavataha, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tat, that knowledge. Akinchananam, who do not claim any material possessions. Pada Aravinda, of the lotus feet of the Lord. Rajasa, by the dust. Apluta, bathed. Dehinam, whose bodies. Syat, is possible. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The translation: Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the well-wisher and friend of all living entities, formally explained this transcendental knowledge to the great saint Narada. Such knowledge is extremely difficult to understand without the mercy of a saintly person like Narada. But everyone who has taken shelter of Narada's disciplic succession can understand this confidential knowledge. Purport: It is stated here that this confidential knowledge is extremely difficult to understand, yet it is very easy to understand if one takes shelter of a pure devotee. This confidential knowledge is also mentioned at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, where the Lord says, Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam raja. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. This knowledge is an extremely confidential secret, but it can be understood if one approaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the bona fide agent, the spiritual master in the disciplic succession from Narada. Prahlad Maharaj wanted to impress upon the sons of the demons that although such knowledge can be understood only by a saintly person like Narada, they should not be disappointed. For if one takes shelter of Narada instead of material teachers, this knowledge is possible to understand. Understanding does not depend upon high parentage. The living entity is certainly pure on the spiritual platform, and therefore anyone who attains the spiritual platform by the grace of the spiritual master can also understand this confidential knowledge. So today, since we are covering more than one verse and the other verses do not have a purport, I will just read these verses, the Sanskrit and the translation, and then we will get into our discussion. Text 28, Prahlad Maharaj is saying, Shutame maya purvam jnanam vijnana samyutam dharmam bhagavatam shuddham narada deva darshanat. Translation: Prahlad Maharaj continued, I have received this knowledge from the great sage Saint Narada Muni, who is always engaged in devotional service. This knowledge, which is called Bhagavata Dharma, is fully scientific. It is based on logic and philosophy and is free from all material contamination. And then the last two verses, text 29 and 30. Shri Daitya Putra Uchuhu Praharadatvam Vayam Chapi Nartenyam Vidmahe Gurum Etabhyam Guru Putrabhyam Balanam Apihishvaro Balasyantah Purasthasya Mahatsango Duranvaya Chindina Samshayam Saumya Syached Visrambha Karanam. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The sons of the demons replied, Dear Prahlad, neither you nor we know any teacher or spiritual master other than Shanda and Amarka, the sons of Shukracharya. After all, we are children and they our controllers. For you especially, who always remain within the palace, it is very difficult to associate with the great personality. Dear friend, most gentle one, would you kindly explain how it was possible for you to hear Narada? Kindly dispel our doubts in this regard. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Mena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utabata Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Mitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Barijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenamandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priyam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhyavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I beg you for your blessings, especially those of you are actually on the level of my spiritual master, my elders and so on. That something of value can be said. I'm also begging that your time and attention may be used well. Since this is the end of this chapter, I did a quick summary, very short summary, not all the translations, even I took out a whole bunch of details to help us quickly revise what has already been spoken about in the previous classes in this chapter. Quick summary, it includes with the famous verse by Prahlad Maharaj, Kaumaram Acharit Pradnyo Dharman Bhagavataniha Durlabham Manusham Janma Tatapi Adhruvam Artadam. Jai Shri Shri Gaurnitai, Shri Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandra, Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Devi. This is a very famous verse. We should all learn it and apply it to our own lives. We might not have started at the Kaumara age, which is 5 years old, like this little child here. But no matter whenever we come in contact with the spiritual knowledge, we should take it wholeheartedly and start from that point onwards. It doesn't matter if we did not get a chance to start at Kaumara, we should take it. The next thing that Prahlad Maharaj explains is the importance of human life and how this human life is so important, so it's not really necessary to invest it in the happiness of the senses, because the happiness of the senses comes automatically, just like the unhappiness of the senses comes automatically. He then talks about how Dharma, Artha and Kama are actually a complete waste of time. This is a 5-year-old boy talking. Realize knowledge, learn from his spiritual master. Dharma, Artha, Kama, complete waste of time. He then makes a very nice calculation of we might think, oh, I am 20 years old or 30 years old and I have another 50, 60 years to live. I have a lot of time to invest in spiritual life. Actually, Prahlad Maharaj calculates it down to about 10 years approximately. If you invest all of that time in spiritual life, he calculates it down from 100 years to a very small years, and I once calculated it down to like 2.2 years or something like that. In a 100-year lifespan, if you live 100 years, then you might get 2.2 years for spiritual life. So it's better not to waste that time. Prahlad Maharaj discusses the high risk in acquiring money. There's very high risk in acquiring money from any means actually. He talks about thieves and professional soldiers, etc. But there is high risk of getting distracted, even acquiring money through legal means and through non-so-called high-risk means. Even if you're in a corporate office, you can die of fatty liver. So it's very, very high risk trying to acquire money. The strength of material attachment, Prahlad Maharaj discusses the strength of material attachment. How through material attachment, everyone is actually completely miserable through all the different family interactions and the social interactions, but still they're attached to the same miserable condition. How, because of ignorance, they cannot actually take seriously to spiritual knowledge, even if it is presented to them. All of us in the Krishna consciousness movement, especially those of us trying to spread it, have that experience. We're trying to explain something sublime, and the person has absolutely no interest in whatsoever. They're suffering, you can see them suffering, but they're not interested. Prahlad Maharaj actually makes a very bold point, and Prabhupada has repeated that in many places. Actually, without bhakti, there is no lasting liberation. There can be some temporary aspect of liberation, but without bhakti, there is actually no liberation. Prahlad Maharaj reassures his classmates and all of us that actually there is no difficulty in pleasing the Lord. It's actually very easy. The Lord is very pleased by simple acts of devotion. He explains how God is everywhere, but to the atheist, God is nowhere, because he is explaining the higher principle, ye yathamam prapadyante. If you start with the principle that there is no God, then God will make the situation that there is no God for you. So it's very, very cool how that works. Prahlad Maharaj is asking all of his to act without duality, which means actually to act without duality is to try and give Krishna to everyone to the extent of their capacity to accept. So sometimes all we can do is give them a little prasad. Sometimes we can just wave at them or give them a smile and they can give us a smile back. That's all that they can do. But we have to try to give Krishna to everyone according to the extent of their capacity. Prahlad Maharaj then reassures his classmates and all of us that actually if we do all of this, we will never lack for anything. Devotees never lack for anything. Right? There is actually no need, he says, of dharma, artha, kama, and even moksha. And Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport very well how these things are not required for the devotee. Prahlad Maharaj then concludes, I have condensed all of the previous verses down into just 15 points here. So the 15th point is, he concludes that with saying that Vedas mostly deal with material aspects, just that Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. So he says it's mostly Trivarga, deals with the modes of material nature. Therefore, pursue that which is non-material, which is devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pursue that wholeheartedly without hesitating. Okay. So with that little summary, we'll get into the topic for today's class. So he is actually, Prahlad Maharaj is saying that, first of all, that the principles of religion can only be given by Krishna himself, by Narayan, Lord Narayan himself. Krishna is the original Narayan, so only Krishna can give that principle. So he confirms what Yamaraj has said already in the 6th canto. He says, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam, and nobody else, Navai vidur rishayo napi deva, siddha mukhya asura manushya, nukuto no vidyadhara charana. Nobody else can actually create the principles of religion. So for us, this is a sign that if anybody else has invented something, there are so many invented so-called principles of religion, we should just completely disregard them. They have no value whatsoever. If they are not coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, no value whatsoever. And then he explains that Narayana is the best friend of all the living entities, especially those in human form of life. So this is confirming the Bhagavad Gita statement, Bhoktaram Vednatabasam, in which Krishna says, Suhridam Sarvabhutanam, Dhyatva Shantim Richati. So, however, our problem in this particular situation is that because even though understanding spiritual knowledge is actually the easiest thing, because we are all spiritual beings, it should be the most natural thing for us. Just like swimming in the water is natural for the fish, we have to learn how to swim, whereas fish know naturally how to swim. We have to learn how to fly, build all these complicated machines that are liable to fall down from the sky any moment in order to fly in the sky, but whereas birds do it naturally. Similarly, for us being spiritual beings, spiritual life comes naturally, but since time immemorial, we have practiced very hard, tried very hard, and become very expert at ignoring the voice of Krishna completely. So there is a voice of Paramatma in our heart, and our situation in the material world is that we have practiced and we have become very expert at ignoring this voice. And therefore, Prahlad Maharaj says that a mercy of the devotee is required, because that devotee, such as Narada Muni and his disciplic succession, actually help us to learn that knowledge and understand that knowledge to our material dullness, to help pierce that material dullness that is in our heart. I mean, everybody here in this room, we are all here because some devotee was very merciful to us. And we can probably count a big list of devotees who were very merciful to us. That first one who distributed a book maybe, or gave us some prasad, or invited us to a program. And then so many others who have contributed over the years to helping us stick to the devotional process. Nobody can do that without assistance from devotees. So we are all here because of that. So Prahlad Maharaj explains how it's like the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord. He has already said it in a previous chapter to his father. He was explaining, devotional service is not possible for someone, Naisham matis tavaduru kramangrim, Tushat tanarthapagamo yarartha, mahiyasam padarajobishekam, Nishkinchananam navrinita yavat. He is actually repeating that to his classmates now. So this is another hallmark of a pure devotee, is that very consistent. Their message is very consistent, not something one day, something the other day. It's always highly consistent. You can see Prabhupada's preaching as well, whether he was preaching in 1965 or 1977, he was preaching the same things very consistently. So that is a very beautiful statement. So the bottom line is that it's very difficult to understand because of our own turning away from Krishna for such a long time, but it's easy by the devotee's mercy. There are so many examples. I received a Bhagavad Gita from a brahmachari 20 plus years ago, 25 plus years ago, at Mumbai outside a railway station. And because the brahmachari could see how reluctant I was to take this, he gave it to me free of charge. This is a very rare thing for a brahmachari to give away a book like that. Grihasthas might sometimes do it and cover it, but brahmacharis usually, unless it's sponsored by somebody, they would not do that. But he did that. He was very merciful. And then after that, I read the Bhagavad Gita hundreds of times myself. First, initially to find faults, but after that, to try to understand. But you can see that even though I may have thought that I understood, I actually did not understand because my lifestyle did not change. The proof of understanding is doing. Karishya vachanam tava. Nashto moha smutir labdva tutvasadan maya chuta. Sitosmi gata sandeha karishya vachanam tava. I will do what you say. So only when somebody is actually taking the spiritual knowledge and applying it to their lives and actually acting on it, you can say that this person has understood it. Until then, they might nod their heads and they might say, yes, I have understood it, and even explain it to you back in very beautiful words. But unless you see that their action is matching their words, they haven't understood. So I had not understood. So I met my spiritual master in 2004, a few years after I got this Bhagavad Gita, and I asked him 600 plus questions over email. And then I also joined a class by Rupanuga Prabhu, Bhagavad Gita class every week in his basement, and for 5 years. And then I understood. So it was only by the devotee's mercy that I actually understood. Because what is the proof? Because by approximately 2008, 2009, I started following the Krishna conscious lifestyle. That means, okay, now I started understanding this whole principle. So because of devotee's mercy. So first of all, Prabhupada's mercy, the whole disciplic succession mercy, that brahmachari's mercy, who gave me the book, and then the devotees who took the time to help us, to help me understand. So, and since then, hundreds and hundreds of devotees have helped in so many different ways. The list is too long to count. So when we reflect on this particular verse, we are reminded of Lord Brahma's prayers from the 14th chapter of the 10th canto, and it's one of Srila Prabhupada's most favorite verses. When Srila Prabhupada quotes that verse, you can see that he's in ecstasy. That he says, Athapite Deva Padam Bhujadvaya Prasada Leshanugrahita evahi Janati Tattvam Bhagavan Mahimno Nachiran Michinmam. So that in that verse, he says, Prasada Leshanugrahita evahi. Like tiny bit of mercy is sufficient to understand the Lord, whereas the whole years of study, as I have personal experience, I have read 15 different editions of the Gita, I have read so many different scriptures, no understanding. Kushne Gusandar. Right? So it was very instructive. So if we reflect on that, for us, especially Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the Shikshashtakam is our very dear, treasured wealth, isn't it? So we chant the Shikshashtakam daily, and we pray in one of the verses of the Shikshashtakam. It says, Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavamudhau Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Sthita Dhuli Sadrisham Vichintaya. Right? We pray this every day. So when we pray that prayer sincerely, then the Lord actually grants that prayer. Even though I might not have the personal experience of being one of the atoms at the lotus feet of the Lord actually gives that kind of benediction to the devotee. So when that devotee goes out in the world, after praying very sincerely to the Lord, to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu here, after praying very sincerely, please, my dear Krishna, put me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. Once we do that, then when that person gets the mercy of the Lord's lotus feet and goes out into the world, then that person is able to act as the mercy of the Lord's lotus feet. Which is why, even if a preacher might be very new, they are quite successful when they go out. That is because of the mercy of the Lord. It's because of that prayer that we chant, is that the Lord's mercy acts as the Lord's lotus feet whenever a Vaishnava goes out and try to distribute Krishna consciousness to somebody else. Okay, a Vaishnava is always very eager to help others advance in spiritual life. And we can see that. We can see great Vaishnavas around us. They're always constantly giving us opportunities to advance in Krishna consciousness. One of the famous examples is that of Maharaj Prataparudra, who wanted to get the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was being a little bit strict with him and saying, no, I'm not going to meet a king. I cannot do this. He's involved with politics and money and women and so on and so forth. I shall not do this. I'm a sannyasi. But over a period of time, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw that Maharaj Prataparudra had earned the mercy of the devotees, such as Ramananda Rai, by giving him a full pension without any work, by the mercy of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, by his sincerity, because he had resolved that if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does not give me his audience, then it's better for me to die. And with that kind of determination, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya saw that this person is actually the king of Orissa, and he's prepared to renounce his whole opulence just to get the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, surely you will get the Lord's mercy. And he explains how you can do it. You can go on this particular day, this particular place. Mahaprabhu will be in complete ecstasy. He'll be in a very udar bhav, very generous mood. You go and recite these 5 chapters of Krishna's interactions with the gopis, which will even enhance Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstasy, and he will embrace you. So that's one example of how he does it. But all devotees who go out in the world trying to spread Krishna consciousness do that. Trying to help everybody advance, from taking prasadam to maybe chanting, to maybe taking a book, to reading the book, to understanding the book, to attending the program, doing some seva. Right? Jayananda Prabhu is the famous example. I met people like that. I met at least one person like that, where Jayananda Prabhu had told him to hold a nail. And 50 years later, he still remembers Jayananda Prabhu and Srila Prabhupada and all the devotees, even though he's not a practicing devotee, he's a hippie. But still he remembers. So surely this mercy acts, hold, here, can you help me hold a nail? Like Jayananda Prabhu needs someone to help him hold a nail, right? So that's one example. So in this next verse of this chapter, the 28, the screen has disappeared. Prahlad says, he discloses who his spiritual master is. He says, I learned this knowledge from Prahlad Maharaj. So this is another very amazing instruction, important instruction for all of us. So Prahlad Maharaj is disclosing the provenance of where his knowledge is coming from. Where are you getting this knowledge from? Sometimes we see some people out in the world who take things from here and there and present it as their own. But this is very important to avoid. It's very important for us to disclose the provenance of our knowledge, to maintain that integrity, that this knowledge is not mine, this knowledge is coming from the disciplic succession and all the devotees who have given this knowledge to me. It's not mine. If we see anybody, and there are so many in this world today calling themselves a guru without having a guru themselves, run. Don't walk, run from them. Like, this is really important. Run from them. Don't pay them any attention whatsoever, and help others also run from them, please. You'll be doing them a big favor. Because when you see a guru, a person who is claiming to be a guru, who does not have a guru for himself, run from that person. Don't stick around there, even if they happen to be speaking something that appears to be attractive. This is very important for us, because this jnana vijnana samyutam that Prahlad Maharaj says in this verse is the same as jnana vijnana sahitam yajnatma mokshasya shubhat, as Krishna has said. So Prahlad Maharaj says that this knowledge is scientific, and and Srila Prabhupada translates this in a very special way. He says it's based on logic and philosophy. So this devotional knowledge is completely transcendental. It is not logic. It is not philosophy. It is based on logic and philosophy, but that knowledge goes beyond logic and philosophy. So if someone sticks to the principle of logic and philosophy in trying to understand bhakti, they will be stuck. They will not go any further than that, because this knowledge is based on logic and philosophy, but there is a lot more than logic and philosophy in that knowledge. So in the last 2 verses, Prahlad's friends, who are very dear to him, are expressing a doubt. They say, if you think about it, this is Shukracharya. Shukracharya is one of the topmost brahmanas of the universe. Shanda and Amarka are his 2 sons. So this is a most elite school. You have to be like a Rajkumar to get into this college, right? It's not possible for ordinary people to get into this school that is run by Shukracharya's 2 sons, Shanda and Amarka. So you have so many schools like that. You have to be the son of a big industrialist to get in. Just the fees alone are so high that, it'll be like a month's salary for somebody else, or a year's salary even. There are schools like that. So this school that Prahlad and his friends are going to is pretty elite, right? So in this elite school, how did somebody else that is teaching some other kind of knowledge other than Dharma, Artha and Kama has come in? Prahlad, where did you learn it from? What is this? How can you meet somebody? He says, "Kahan se sikha hai sab?" How did you learn all of these things? So they are saying you're protected. You're inside the palace. There are guards watching over all you all the time. All of us too. We are all sons of Hiranyakashipu's associates. His ministers, his commanders, and his close associates. Like these are all like the top of the top, the best of the demons. How is it that you got this knowledge? So what this tells us, this particular part of the Bhagavatam tells us, is that to express doubt is not an offense. Sometimes people are afraid to express doubts to devotees, and they keep the doubts in their hearts, right? And this doubt festers and festers for months and years, and all of a sudden they're gone. One fine day you don't find them in the association of devotees. So it's very important for those devotees to actually express the doubts to someone that they are close to. Just like they trust Prahlad Maharaj. They know that Prahlad is their well-wisher. So they're expressing this doubt. So to express a doubt is not an offense, right? Here in the Upadeshamrita also, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Guhyati, Guhyam Pritchati, Akhyati Pritchati, right? So he says that in the chapter. So this is very important for us to know that don't keep these things that are in your heart, your doubts or your things even about Vaishnavas or their behavior or whatever. Just disclose it openly to somebody who is close to you, because this will help you to stay. I have done it, and I know that they have cleared it out completely, and I felt so relieved after that. Why someone does a certain thing in a certain way. You ask the devotees. Don't make your own conclusions. Don't speculate about that. Okay, so I will just do a quick. I will conclude with this. Okay, so in our world, spirituality is maligned. People say, you spiritual people, you're all people of blind faith, right? You believe that there is something without any proof, right? Of course, we don't accept that there is no proof. We see a lot of different kinds of proof. But what we say to the world is, blind faith may be dangerous, but even if somebody has blind faith in a very good doctor, they will be cured of their illness, even if they don't know how the doctor is acting. You don't have to be an expert oncologist or a cardiologist to figure out that to benefit from a doctor's treatment, right? So many people have gone through many medical treatments. They don't know what is inside the medicine. They just pop the pill, isn't it? You don't understand how a headache tablet works, does it? You take it anyways. Is that not blind faith? Right? You don't understand how aspirin blocks the pain receptors in your brain. Like, does everybody understand? Everybody understand that technically? Maybe somebody who's trained medically might understand, but not everybody else. But you still take it, isn't it? When we have a headache, we have to continue our service. We take that pill and we continue the service, right? However, many devotees say this, and Chaitanya Charan Prabhu also says this very well, is that bigger problem than blind faith in the world is blind doubt. Devamrita Swami Maharaj, when he was speaking in the Rotman School of Management in Toronto, he was saying that the scientists will start off with the assumption that God does not exist. Well, first of all, God cannot be existent, because how can it? So they start with that blind faith, blind doubt. So more dangerous than blind faith is actually blind doubt, because blind faith might actually produce some kind of results, but blind faith will always keep you in the same position forever. Okay, so quick, what we did in this class here is we looked at the last 4 verses of this chapter, 27, 28, 29, and 30. So in the first one, before we started that, we did a quick summary of the chapter. So if you have if you have just 5 minutes or 10 minutes today, please go ahead and read just the translations. Even if you don't have time to read the purports, please read just the translations of this chapter. It will help us to remember it better and absorb it and reflect on it and meditate on it, right, in the heart. And then today's verse, we talked about how Lord Narayan is our best friend, but we have practiced making him not our best friend. So therefore, we cannot understand what he's saying anymore. We have drifted apart, so far apart that Lord Krishna's words, Paramatma's instructions don't make any sense to us anymore. And so therefore, a devotee, a friend of Narayan's and friend of ours as well, comes and expresses that knowledge in a way that we can understand, right? So some devotees preach in a new age way, some devotees preach without mentioning the word Krishna sometimes, right? People do those different kind of things, but they do that to attract those people who will get turned off the moment they hear the word God in the book. So therefore they don't mention those words. Just to help, we cannot misunderstand those things. That's their effort to bring those people back. So the Lord does that. We looked at different verses on the Bhagavatam where the spiritual knowledge can only come from God. Anything that does not come from Krishna should be disregarded. We understood how it is difficult for us to understand directly unless we are so pure like Narada Muni. But we can understand by the devotees' mercy. We have all our personal stories. Every single person in this room has a story of how they came to Krishna consciousness. Just recall those devotees and see how much mercy we have received. We looked at that verse on the Bhagavatam where Athapite Deva Padam Mujatvaya Prasada Lesha Anugrahita Evahi. We looked at that verse where the Lord's 2 lotus feet give us the mercy that we need. But how do we get the mercy of the lotus feet? We get that through Kripayatava Pada Pankasha Dhuli. Because of that person is imbued with the power of the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord. And of course, they're taking the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord every day from the temple in the Charanamrit, and they're imbued with the Lord's dust in so many different ways. So those devotees are empowered by the Lord. So Vaishnava is very eager to help others advance. We should all strive to do that. And then, important that Prahlad discloses who his spiritual master is. He doesn't say, a little bird told me or whatever. He says, Narad Muni told me. And then the way he explains it elicits some doubts from his classmates, and we explored the part that doubts are actually very important. Arjuna asked a similar question. He says, Aparam bhavato janma, param janma vivasvataha, katham edam vijaniyam, to madhav proktavaniti. How can I understand that you explained this to the sun god when the sun was existent before you were born? 80, 90, 125 years ago or whatever the age was at that point in time. How is it that you explain? Arjuna asked Krishna directly because Krishna was directly his spiritual master. Similarly, we should not hold back the questions. We should not be unnecessarily polite with our questions and doubts. We should explain it to our leader, maybe our brahmachari leader or our preacher or bhakti vriksha leader, whoever that might be, and explain to them our doubts. And they will help us do the activities. So once I asked Vaisheshika Prabhu, because we were talking, he was discussing a verse in which the 4 Kumaras were transformed from Brahmavadi to Bhaktas by the fragrance of the sandalwood and the tulsi of the Lord's lotus feet. They smelled this fragrance and they immediately became devotees. And I was wondering how I can do that. And Vaisheshika Prabhu, who was giving the class, he said, tomorrow morning, he said, you bathe your deity. Tomorrow you grind some sandalwood and put a tulsi leaf on the lotus feet of your Lord at your home. And then tomorrow morning you bathe him, and then you will taste the lotus feet of the Lord. He actually gave me a practical instruction. Basically, he was saying, get deeper into your deity worship, not just a dhuparthi, right? So by that instruction, I was able to get deeper and taste more. Obviously, what the Kumaras experienced and my experience cannot be compared. But so when we disclose our deepest doubts, it's impractical, right? How can I smell the lotus feet of the Lord when I'm here in material consciousness? But he gave me a practical way to get closer to that. So I'll pause here with this and see if there's any questions, comments, or reflections. Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. In this purports which you read today, Prabhupada tells that there is no impediment to devotional, the spiritual journey. So I always wonder that Srila Prahlad Maharaj actually spoke a very core philosophy.
Yeah.
In fact, he spoke about family life, and these boys are just 5-year-old. They have no clue about attachment to woman and nothing actually. So what do we deduce from, like Prabhupada is saying that there is no impediment. So is it like all types of spiritual knowledge can be given at all ages? Because usually I don't see as a practice in ISKCON also that people actually speak this way. Even this teachings of Prahlad Maharaj, the book which is there, it's usually not the first book that a person can very easily take up, means in his own life, even if he's a grown up.
Oh, they get very nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you understand this?
So first of all, we have to understand that like, let me say it this way. I did not meet Narad Muni for a reason. Just as the Bhagavad Gita was not spoken to every man on the street for a reason. Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Arjuna because Arjuna was at that level where he could understand. Narad Muni came to Dhruva and Prahlad because they were at that level where they could understand. And if you look at the other Puranas, there are stories of how Prahlad came to where he was a Brahmana, and then various stories like that. So he's a very advanced devotee, first of all. So the spiritual master came, the right message at the right moment, right? So secondly, we have to understand that these boys who are 5 years old, they are the sons of like the topmost leaders of the world. They are very, very advanced. Like, for example, if you saw any kind of news anytime recently, you could see that Elon Musk took his children to the White House. So they're discussing all kinds of things in the White House. So these children are hearing all of these things now at this very small age right now, correct? So what we can understand also is that these boys are very highly qualified to be able to be born in such an advanced materialistic situation. They're very, they're kriti, they're dushkriti, but they're kriti. They have a lot of karmic power, let's say. So Shanda and Amarka have been teaching them the complete opposite of this stuff. They have been teaching them politics, by the way. They have been teaching them how to divide two people and conquer over them. They have been teaching them these kinds of things. So they were 5 years old, but they are not the 5 years old of Kali Yuga right now. Right? They are 5 years old, so they are definitely very advanced in that regard. But because they are in a different yuga and different caliber of personalities. Right? Plus, the other thing is that they are associates of Prahlad Maharaj. So they are actually already liberated souls, practically speaking, by hearing this. They are one step removed from Narad. They are Narad Muni's grand disciples, all of these boys. So they are actually, very solid. But so sometimes we see that even very young children, like there is one boy in Vrindavan who teaches Bhagavatam, young fellow, Madhav, small boy, and the way he preaches, he's not a 7-8-year-old boy preaching that way. We'll see. I mean, he is going to go through his teenage years soon, but he's definitely a very fortunate person, right? Very great soul in many ways. Then there was another boy whose picture I saw in Mayapur, who had distributed 10,000 books in the marathon alone. Right? There is not too many 10-year-old boys who can do that kind of service. Many of us will find it very difficult to do that kind of service ourselves, unless we get some sponsorships or something like that. Distributing 10,000 books hand to hand is an extremely difficult endeavor, even in India, where it's much easier than other parts of the world. So we can see that even in this world, there are very advanced people. Like there are people who have patents at the age of 12. There are people who have completed their graduation. In our own movement, we have Radha Raman Prabhu, I think. Radhika Raman Prabhu and his brother, I forget his full name, Sham something. Gopal Hari Prabhu, who completed their PhD at the age of 20 or 21. People who don't even know what they want to do with life, they've already finished their PhD and they're professors, full professors by the age of 25, right? When their grad students are older than them, right? So we can see that these kinds of things do happen. Still, we should be careful not to extend our own adhikar. This is Prahlad Maharaj speaking, so he knows what to speak. Just as Prabhupada spoke in a certain way, and he said, you cannot speak the way I am speaking necessarily, always, right, in every time, place and circumstance. So we should take that into account. But if we see that somebody is willing to take, we can give.
Understand 2-3 points from this. One is Narad Muni spoke to Prahlad because he is a very advanced personality. Prahlad spoke to these schoolmates because they are also Kriti in some other ways and they had caliber to understand. And then we should take the Deshkal Patra and try to speak. One thing which Prabhupada mentions, that's why I was trying to understand, because Prabhupada mentions in this purport only that understanding does not depend upon high parentage. So it is not based on that situation that because they are in the high parentage, that's why they can be spoken. So, like we hear about Abhimanyu hearing the Chakravarti thing in the womb only.
Yes.
So, is the wisdom, is the knowledge transferable beyond this intellect into this soul? Is if that is the technology Krishna has given in this for the soul,
That's a great question, actually.
then we have that opportunity for the soul to get help at the very early age.
So we know this, that the quality of the soul that is attracted into a particular man's heart and that is injected into the womb of the mother depends on the consciousness of the parents. In other words, there are millions of them, millions of jivas. One of them is getting a chance to take birth, right? So I think it's more the intellect and like the subtle body, for example, is coming from past births. It is not dependent on the high parentage in that regard, because a very very highly intelligent person, a highly smart person, can be born in a family of illiterate people. We have seen this happening. So many cases in our own movement also. Like their parents were, but the devotees are extraordinary. So the intellect is not dependent on birth per se. It's coming from that own soul's past journey. So that's a fact. So high parentage definitely does not apply to that. So that's a material situation. So in one sense, there is also one more thing that is there, which is that because the boys are also just 5 years old, and because they are getting this education, and because they don't have an attachment to those materialistic things that you mentioned just now, they're actually willing and receptive to this knowledge. So sometimes I have seen devotees sometimes say that certain parts of the Bhagavatam should not be told to certain ages, etc. But personally, I don't see that as being a problem. I've been doing that to my son, for example. I've been giving the full message as it is. And I feel like I don't know, he's not yet has gone through the adolescence yet. So I think Prabhupada said that if you train them up from a very early age, then when these impulses strike, when the hormones start developing in the body, then they will know, aha, this is what it means to have sex desire. They will actually understand that. And then they say, oh, this is where it leads to. They will understand that as well. So we should definitely try to take into account the child's capacity to understand. But I think if you look at Gauranga Darshan Prabhu's books, he has explained the point without getting into certain details. So if you look at his books meant for children, he has explained the point. He has not glossed over the thing, and he has not omitted it from the book, for example. Right? And same thing with the children's Krishna book and the description of the rasa dance, etc. The authors they may have taken out some details, but the principles are still there in the book. So they have not removed it. So I don't think we need to censor the Bhagavatam personally. We can explain it in a way that people can understand, but we don't have to not give the message. 5th canto, 6th canto, we should tell them this is what it is. And people say, don't tell children about death. They protect them. They don't take them to funerals and all this stuff. I took my son to funerals because I want him to see what it is. I want him to experience that. And I say, yes, you'll be protected as long as you're in the shelter of the holy name. So let's go. We can go. So we should not insulate them from these things. In the Western countries especially, it's a very bad. Situation is very, very bad. You don't see old people around. You don't see sick people anywhere because they have taken them and just hidden them somewhere. Old age homes, hospitals. Nobody sees old age, death. Nobody sees that stuff. Right? Nobody sees birth also because people are born in hospitals and the room is closed. Nobody knows how the mother is screaming. And nobody has heard these things. The Western countries especially very bad. So the prevention of this knowledge has caused problems, because the children don't experience that until they actually get into a problem. And they say, oh, I've never experienced this. It's because as soon as you become a drug addict, you're locked away. You never see anybody there. So it's very, I don't think we should censor it, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for bringing out the point. Anything else, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Prabhuji, I have a question. How to go beyond philosophy and logic?
Chant Hare Krishna.
And
Because, tell me something. From all regular logic, does it make sense you chant Hare Krishna and something will happen?
no, Prabhuji.
Doesn't, no?
Yes.
So that's what I was also having. I was having a mental block. I was asking questions and the devotees were saying, chant Hare Krishna and you will understand. I'm like, what is this? Chant Hare Krishna and you will understand. Where's the logic in this? So that's why I'm saying that it's not possible unless if I had not chanted, for example, when the devotees were telling me that, then I would have never gone beyond logic. You know what I mean? So chanting Hare Krishna and chanting intensely and chanting with attention is the only way to understand that which cannot be understood by logic or philosophy. That which can be transmitted from heart to heart, but cannot be, like where the purports are there, you can give the atheists these purports and they won't understand anything over here. Make sense? So
Yes.
chanting and all the aspects of devotional service are on the same caliber. So offering a flower to the Lord that we offer in the temple here, right? Every single aspect of it is very potent. So when we do that, then we go beyond logic. Then we develop that intangible known as love, you know. And then it's like, why are you doing this? I don't know. You know, why? Krishna doesn't need to eat. Why are you feeding him? No, I can't keep my Krishna hungry. I have to feed him. You know, oh, he doesn't need to eat. Yes, I know he doesn't need to eat, theoretically. But when it comes down to the aspect of love, it's like, no, I can't let my Krishna starve. No, it's not possible. Where is the logic in that? No logic. So when you practice devotional service, so the logic and the philosophy is just so that we can bring someone into Krishna consciousness. But Krishna consciousness is not logic or philosophy. And logic and philosophy also, sometimes you see the devotees come into the door, you don't have to explain anything to them. They don't ask any questions like that. They just start chanting, they start pursuing devotional service. You know, like they don't. And then somebody comes in and they're highly intellectual, and then you have to answer a million questions from them. So actually, Srila Prabhupada says, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, right, Jada Vidya Mayar Vaibhav Jiva ke banaye gadha, Tomare bhajane badha. So the more highly educated we are, the harder it is, unless they are pure-hearted. Like many of our devotees are very pure-hearted, even though they are highly educated. So they had no problems. But we see that more highly educated, especially in the Western countries, we see this. We go to rich areas to distribute books, very few scores. We go to very poor areas to distribute books, very poor scores. We go to the middle, like lower, middle areas to distribute, there we have some success. So it's like the material qualifications or disqualifications cause them to not listen to the message sometimes. Even though there is no impediment, as Prabhupada said in the Purport. But did I answer your question, or am I going around what you actually meant to ask?
Yes, Prabhuji. And Prabhuji, that means we are taking it wholeheartedly, means Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, just do it. My Guru Maharaj always says, just give it when you're chanting or when you're practicing. Just give 6 months to Krishna and see what happens. Just suspend everything else, give 6 months to Krishna and see what happens. Huh? Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. We are out of time. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namo anantagoti vaishnavinda ki jai.
Hare Krishna. So His Grace Mahabhagavat Prabhu is very senior disciple of His Grace Sankarshan Das Adhikari Prabhu. He is based in USA and is very brilliant example of how to
be fully dedicated to service of spiritual master, along with taking care of family responsibilities and professional career. He has played an important role in publication of books by His Grace Sankarshan Das Adhikari Prabhu. He is very inspired for book distribution, and he has a target of distributing 1 lakh Bhagavad Gita in his life. And he sponsors Bhagavad Gita also for many, many temples and many, many occasions. As his name itself shows, he is Mahabhagavat Prabhu. Let us thank him for wonderful Srimad Bhagavatam class by loudly chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Thank you very much.